This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Wealth Advisors. Retirement isn't just about saving, it's about having a strategy that helps you navigate market ups and downs, combat inflation, and secure the future you deserve. That's why Financially Fit Radio is here to tackle your biggest financial concerns, share actionable strategies, and help you move toward your retirement goals with confidence. And now, here's Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome back to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Wealth Advisors. If you'd like any information about anything that we discuss on the show today, just feel free to give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to check out today's show, as well as you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Spotify. Also, feel free to watch today's show on our YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Harbor Wealth Advisors. Go right to our YouTube channel, and you can watch today's show. You can also subscribe and be kept up to date with all the little financially fit videos that we actually put out, usually around anywhere from 3 to 5 on a weekly basis. You know, one thing I do want to make sure everyone understands that if you do schedule a complimentary meeting with us, it is complimentary. There's no financial obligation. We're here to help and guide you to make sure that you have the best possible retirement. Well, it seems like you can't turn the channel on right now without hearing something on a daily basis about Social Security. And one of the things we want to do is kind of want to talk about what's actually happening from a security standpoint with Social Security today or this week, first week of April. And we actually haven't just kind of gave you an update on some of the changes that kind of took place here in 2025 as well. So we think it's a pretty good time frame to start on that. But before I dive into that topic, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you?
Great. Thanks for asking, Cory. It's been a crazy week. And wow, there's a lot going on out there. You turn on the news, you look at the news on your phone or on your computer, or you watch the CNBC or Fox Business, and it's been crazy out there. And Social Security has been in the news a lot. I'm glad we're talking about this today. But I've had a good week, Cory. I've been really busy, just trying to get everything done. How about you? How have you been?
You know, been good, Tony. You know, I'm actually, again, we record on Mondays, and I'm flying up to Minneapolis. I'll be able to see you up there. We're actually going to do a radio show up there together as well later this week. So not looking forward to coming to a little chilly Minneapolis. It's like it's going to be like the 30s and 20s at night. Maybe it might hit 40 while I'm there.
It might. We're supposed to get some rain and snow on Wednesday. Hate to tell you.
Yep. So, looking forward to come up there, spend some time with some other advisors. To be able to, learn about, different types of financial topics.
Yeah, it'll be fun to hang out with you.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. Before we get started with Social Security, let's bring Joe on, and we'll just have a little Medicare minute here. And Joe, so I think what you want to kind of talk about, one of the questions we get asked a lot of is, hey, I'm turning 65. Well, what do I need to do?
You took the words right out of my mouth. I get asked that at least once a week. When you are turning 65 and you are still working, Cory talks about it all the time. Retirement age is now being pushed out to 67, and some people I'm talking to are even pushing it out to almost 70. So when you're approaching that age of 65, you're kind of at a crossroads between your health insurance options. So whether or not you need to sign up for Medicare depends on your specific situation, especially if you are still working and have employer-sponsored health insurance. So a couple different, scenarios here or topics to talk about if you fall into this category. So if you are still working and you are covered by an employer-sponsored health insurance, if your employer has 20 or more employees, Medicare is going to view that as credible coverage, and you can keep your current employer-sponsored coverage and delay your Medicare enrollment. If your employer has fewer than 20, that's going to be viewed as not credible or non-credible coverage, And typically you're going to want to enroll into a Medicare plan, as your employer coverage may not be, again, considered credible, and you could potentially incur some penalties by not signing up. Now, the flip side of that is a lot of people I'm talking to, their spouse is still working. They're at different ages. So if your spouse is covered by an employer-sponsored health insurance program and you are on that as well, the same rules apply, that 20 above or 20 below. So really, figure out on that first key step where you're at with the employers or with your employee, how many employers they have, and if your coverage is considered credible. You could also talk to your HR department about that. Next step is, if you're turning 65, you still working, and you've got a healthcare savings account, an HSA. So if you have that HSA and you are wanting to sign up for Medicare, whether it be Part A only or even Part B, you cannot contribute to that HSA. You're going to want to stop, ideally 6 months in advance, making that contribution. You don't want to get charged with any excess contributions come tax time and, kind of lose money on that. What I, kind of advise people is, if you're thinking about, looking at retirement and you're going to go on Medicare and you are contributing to that HSA, if you don't know specifically when you want to retire, like a lot of times I'll hear, I'm looking at maybe the summer, but it could be fall or maybe by the end of the year. I always recommend stop contributing to the HSA when you're getting serious about thinking about that. Give yourself that 6-month window. But however, take that money and create your own savings for your medical expenses. Whether that be just put the money into a savings account, or if there's a significant money there that, one of the advisors at Safe Harbor, can advise you on to put that money in to continue to grow so that you have that savings for your medical expenses. The next big thing is, how do you qualify for Medicare? Just because you're turning 65 doesn't mean that you necessarily are eligible for Medicare. So one of the big things with that is your Part A. So Part A is your hospital coverage, like I've talked about on other shows. But the big key to qualify for premium-free Part A is you have to have 40 credits. To qualify to earn those 40 credits, you essentially have to work a 40-hour a week job for about 10 years of your life. I think most adults are going to fall into that category. So that's going to qualify you for the premium-free Part A coverage. And then you'll have your Part B on top of that to get your original Medicare. Your Part B is going to start out at $185. That's going to be adjusted for income based on your adjusted gross income on your taxes over the last couple of years. That's where talking to me, working with the advisors, are going to help you be able to plan for that so that, you're not going to get hit with any big fees if you can avoid them, or any big penalties. So to kind of recap all that, some of the key steps here is you're going to want to evaluate your current health coverage. If you're 65 and you're still working, do that comparison. Sometimes your employer coverage is going to come out stronger for an individual or for a family, especially if you're working and you have your kids on your coverage. Medicare is an individual-based health insurance plan, so it doesn't cover your spouse or it doesn't cover your kids. But also do the cost comparison on that, and look at the benefits that your employer coverage is doing, and then the options that are out there for Medicare. Decide when you need to enroll. Just because you're turning 65 doesn't necessarily mean that you need to sign up for Medicare. That's going to come down to, again, how many employees is the coverage considered credible or not. You want to avoid any penalties, obviously, if possible. And then, kind of like I talked about with evaluating, comparing that coverage with the Medicare. There are times that Medicare plans will be stronger for somebody, depending on what your coverage looks like through your employer or the price that you pay for that. So do that comparison, or reach out to us. Again, it's complimentary. Let's figure out what is the right situation for you or the family, and then check. Again, make sure that you have those necessary credits that you can retire. You can pick up the health insurance and not have to pay the large penalties for the Part A if you don't have the necessary credits. So a lot of things to kind of think about there. But again, just because you're turning 65 doesn't mean that you necessarily have to sign up for Medicare. There are situations where it makes sense to, and there is obviously situations where it doesn't.
Thanks, Joe. For our listeners and viewers out there, here's the real deal. If you're turning 65, just give us a call and we'll help you go through this to see if you actually have to sign up for Medicare.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Well, Tony, Social Security has been in the news a lot. So
A lot.
it has been. And, obviously, I think there's a couple things of it. One of it, I think that everyone knows of is there's going to be a reduction in staff, right?
Right.
They're trying to automate some things. My guess would be more long term. And here's what I will tell everyone out there, that the first thing I would do is, if you do not have a Social Security, if you do not have like a Social Security username and password, you really need to be able to do that going forward. And what you need to do is you need to go out to ssa.gov. And when you go out to ssa.gov, you'll be able to see out there where you can set up your own account. And they're going to go through a process to identify who you are. Hopefully, you're going to be in a situation where you can identify online. If not, there is not going to be any more phone verifications going forward. So it's either going to do it online, or you're going to have to actually go to a Social Security location, a physical location. So one of the big changes taking place is after April 14th of this year, there's not going to be any more verification done over the phone. It's all going to be online or actually in person.
Yeah, that's tough too. I mean, you're talking about seniors who some of them might not be able to get around as well. So I that kind of surprised me, that change. And the cutting of 7,000 jobs they're talking about. At one point, about a month ago, they said up to half. I thought 7,000 jobs. How many people work there? But then I read that 57,000 employees are employed in the Social Security workforce. That's a lot.
It is a lot. So not only not only the phone. If you do have to just have a call, we're not talking about verification, Tony, but we're just talking about if you have a call and you want to try to get a hold of someone, my guess is the wait times are going to be longer. Yeah. And if you're trying to schedule something online, my guess is those dates are going to be able to be moved out.
Yeah. I know somebody who waited 3 hours on hold.
Yeah.
And if you call the Social Security line now, it'll say something like the wait time is, 2 hours and 34 minutes or something like that. It's a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
But here's one of the things that I will tell you, especially obviously the older you are, the more issues you might have. But, sure. For our generation and people that are just be turning 65, they probably have a little bit more online capability.
Yeah.
And you should. Here's one of the things that I always would recommend. One, they haven't been mailing statements out for a while.
A long time, yeah.
And I think it might be something where you get them every 5 years or something like that. So when they actually mail the statements out, they're you're receiving a lot more of them. I remember growing up, we used to get them every year.
Yep.
So it's not the way it doesn't work anymore.
No.
So one of the things that you're going to want to be able to do is you want to go online and you want to actually make sure that your earnings are correct.
Yep.
Because that amount is what's going to determine what you're going to receive later on in retirement. Mm-hmm. And you only have like 2 or 3 years to correct it. I think it's 3 years to be able to go back and correct it. So you want to go online to make sure. And if you have multiple jobs, or if you change jobs mid-year, you definitely want to go online to make sure your W-2 earnings actually match what's on your Social Security earnings. And if not, get it corrected.
Yeah.
Right. So there's some benefits of being able to go out online to do that. I went out. I think they have different logins that you can do. They have the regular Social Security, but now I think the government has a new one called Login. I think it's called login.gov.
Yeah.
So when I do log in, to Social Security, I now have an authenticator app on there.
Yep.
Where I actually got to do the 6-digit code.
Yep.
So from a security standpoint, it's better. I'm the only one that's going to have that auth because it's tied to that. I think that authenticators also tied to my phone, so
Yep.
they know it's actually me that's actually logging in.
Yeah, I just did it. I just did this end of last week because of everything, all the news going on. I wanted to make sure I could log in and had that login set up. And I went through the same thing. You have to have that login app if you go that route. So, yeah.
Yeah. The other part is after April 15th, the only way that you're going to be able, I believe, to change your bank information is if you actually do it online or physically go into the office.
Right. Yep. And if you're not that internet savvy or computer savvy, have somebody younger help you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I would actually do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you gotta make sure that you understand how this works. And I know that you want to make sure that you understand your Social Security and that you double check it. And it's just going to ssa.gov.
Yep.
And then if you do /my account, you can set up your login or log into your account. So ssa.gov/my account. That's how you get there. And gov is GOV. So ssa.gov. That's the official login site. So, obviously, if you can't go online, you have to visit a local SSA office for certain transactions, and you'll want to bring those original documents, right?
Yeah. So when we talk about original documents, really what we're talking about, I'm going to read this because I have it kind of written down over here, Tony.
Sure. No problem.
Let's see. Yep. You're going to need Social Security card.
Yeah. It's like, don't they have that information?
Yeah. You're going to need like a Social Security card, a driver's license, or a passport.
Sure.
That you're going to have to be able to actually, bring in there as well.
Yeah. Yep. And hopefully you've been diligent about hanging on to your Social Security card, your original. So that's important.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about what's taking place here in 2025 with your Social Security.
Yeah. What are the changes?
So one of the changes that, from a cost of living standpoint, the changes basically is 2.5% for 2025. So everyone already should have received those checks. Another nice thing that a lot of people have done, especially in the state of Ohio, is, they got rid of what they call the windfall protection. So I know a lot of clients that within the last couple of months have received back pay all the way from January of 2024 to current. So they got checks for around 13 or 14 months. So the windfall is no longer in effect in Ohio. And that's a huge, point of it, because the way Ohio worked, they were actually one of the states that actually had the windfall effect. I don't know if Minnesota is, Tony. I don't have clients up there, but obviously that's a big one here.
Yeah, no, it's big here as well. It makes a huge difference, and that they eliminate. I love our government. They eliminated the windfall elimination.
That's exactly
so they've
right.
eliminated the elimination. I love that.
Yep, they did. The other part of it is if you make up to $76,000, $100 in 2025, that's where you pay up to the 6.2% in Social Security. If you make anything above that, then you don't, you no longer participate in paying that 6.2%. But that is up to $176,100. The other part of it is one thing that people always talk about is, well, I want to work in retirement. Right. Yep. And if you're, obviously if you haven't reached your full retirement age, and if you're born before 1960, it's going to be 66 in a certain month. Mm-hmm. But anyone born after 1960, it's going to be age of 67. But if you try to file, any before 1 year before your full retirement age, so let's just say you're 64 or 65 years old, mm-hmm. The most that you can earn is really $23,400 without having your Social Security be deducted. And anything you make above that, then for every $2 you earn, you lose $1 of your Social Security benefit. So it's just something to think about if you have a part-time job, you're out there working, and you're collecting your Social Security. Now it does grow. Now it does go up to $62,160 if you're 1 year within your full retirement, and they do reduce the penalty from $3 to $1 within that last year. So it's just something to think about. Again, talk with your advisor. If you want to make sure that you're not going to be penalized on your Social Security, but you still want to be able to keep working.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot more people are working into retirement too. So this can have a big impact. Just side hustles or the what they call the gig economy. And
Yep.
I know I plan on doing this job and as long as my voice holds out, Cory. So,
Yeah. And one of the things that Joe mentioned earlier, and this is just something to think about. Basically you got to earn, if you earn a little over $1,700 per month or per quarter, then you actually receive a credit, right?
Right.
So you need 40 credits. So you can get a maximum of 4 credits within a year. So Joe was right when he said it takes about 10 years to get your credits.
Yep.
In order to receive your Social Security, that's part of it, and B, to make sure that you also qualify for Medicare Part B as well.
Yeah.
So those are the big changes. The other part of it is one of the things that we're able to offer our clients, Tony, is a lot of people have like, when should I actually take Social Security? It can be a big number or a big part of what you actually receive in retirement. Obviously, the less that your monthly payment is of your overall monthly income, you're going to be better off. And the only way to be able to do that means you got to have other pensions and you got to be able to save. However, when we start talking about Social Security, when should you actually file? And when we actually get down to the details and start doing income planning, we have what we call a Social Security maximization report that's going to be able to show us and show you when is the best time for you to be able to trigger your benefits. And if you're married, if you're a widow or a widower, then we're going to be able to actually even have that kind of play into play as a family to be able to kind of show you when's the best time for you to be able to file for your Social Security. And what a lot of people don't realize, Tony, is you can actually file for a spousal, right? So your spouse could be eligible. You want to make sure you're taking advantage of that. And if you did have a spouse pass away, it might be a benefit where you take yours and then take theirs later, or you take theirs now and you take yours later. So there's a lot of different solutions out there, which is why that Social Security maximization report is so key to laying that foundation for your income plan.
Well, yeah, it is. And I'm glad you have that. My wife and I had that run just to see where we'd be at. And it is so helpful. It even factors in some spousal benefits, everything. You put in what you believe your longevity might be and your full retirement age, and it's going to figure out what's your sweet spot, right?
It does.
When the best time to file would be, because everybody's situation is different, right?
That's the big key. Everyone's situation is different. And I have a lot of clients that, obviously they want to be able to maximize what they want to, maximize your money. And that's a good way to be able to do that. And then I have others that obviously everyone's wanting to retire earlier. It seems like it's more and more everyone wants to retire earlier.
Right.
Just because you retire doesn't mean you have to take your Social Security.
Right.
I think everyone's mind, they think if I retire, I got to take Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start doing long-term, really long-term planning for you, because you might be in retirement 20, 30 years,
Right.
you want to make sure that you're maximizing every possible dollar that you can throughout your lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're here to do, is help you to be able to do that. Social Security is such a big component of your retirement that you want to make sure that you're maximizing it. You want to make sure that the credits are correct. So one thing that I would say is today, if you have questions about Social Security and maximizing it, give us a call. You can schedule a complimentary, no obligation meeting. We don't need your Social Security number. We only need a few things like your date of birth and what you're going to receive at your full retirement age, and we can calculate all this stuff for you. But the more important part is with where we're going, go online, get your account, because it's going to eliminate hopefully long term for you, any fraud possibilities taking place, and you're going to be able to keep up to date to make sure that your social security numbers are correct.
There you go. Well, we're out of time today, Cory. What's that phone number and web address that our listeners can contact you with to get that no charge, no obligation consultation and Social Security maximization report?
Yeah, for our listeners and viewers out there, just give us a call at 614-760-0670. Or again, you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Thank you for joining us for Financially Fit Radio. Don't head into retirement without a strategy that addresses both income and taxes. For more information, please contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Wealth Advisors at 614-760-0670 or visit safeharboroh.com now. Join us again soon for another episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Investment advisory services are offered by Safe Harbor Wealth Advisors, LLC, and SEC Investment Advisor. Insurance products and services are offered through Safe Harbor Retirement Group, LLC, an affiliated company. Safe Harbor Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Safe Harbor Retirement Group, LLC, are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any government agency. All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.